Do you consider yourself a high achiever? Smart, driven, highly successful? I am so excited to have you. My name is Julia Arndt and I'm the host of the Stressed podcast. I will help you develop your stress resilience the same way you've developed your workplace superpowers. Learn peak performance tools to thrive at work and in your personal life. Let's get started. Hi everyone and welcome back to the Stressed podcast. I am super excited as always to welcome a guest to the show, and today it is Kristy. Hi Kristy, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. I am very excited to have you on the podcast today and talk with you about all the things. But before we jump in, let's answer the first question that I always have for all my podcast guests, which is, where are you located? What time is it? And what have you been up to up until this point today?
It's been a very busy day. I am located in Atlanta, Georgia. It is 2:00 Eastern, so I'm Eastern time here. And we actually launched, one of my companies, STARTplanner, launched their new product, 2022 planners today. So I've been doing the back end of business stuff, making sure websites are optimized, no code is breaking, handling some customer service, all the different things.
Wow. Has it been a successful launch so far?
It has. I mean,
awesome.
We've been very, very blessed with the demand in our product. As far as launches, we typically put out a pre-order, and we have a core group of community that I'm so grateful for. And I think an added layer is, I think for all of us this year, coming up the holidays and the new year, is going to be availability on products. Yeah, so I think there's this extra sense of urgency, and even could be stress factor we could talk about as far as we all embark upon the holidays and different things, making sure things are going to be in stock. So I think that there's a sense of urgency even layered in with that.
Yeah, for sure. Amazing. Well, congratulations. I'm very happy to hear that. And you're already talking a little bit about your multiple companies. So tell us a little bit more about who you are.
Oh, goodness. Who am I? That's a long-winded question. Well, I own about 5 companies. I have a couple online e-commerce brands. Start Brands is the main company, and it has STARTplanner, which is the planner company that I just spoke about. And it also has Start Knowing Your Numbers. I actually teach people at their core how to understand their numbers and know their business. So I'm finance trained, but a lot of this stuff that I'm teaching, that I'm talking about, it's actually been through hitting rock bottom or hardships that I've actually developed systems and put them in place. And I'm an author of one book, another company called JM Storm. I'm behind the scenes, a partner of his, and I have some commercial and residential companies as well, real estate that I have as well. So I'm very blessed to feel like I'm diverse right now, because in the seasons of that I've all kind of went, companies have ebbs and flows, and it's constantly changing and pivoting and making sure certain companies are not causing too much stress. So there's been a lot of changes that's happened in my world over the times.
Yeah. Wow. And so when did your journey start? You were already kind of mentioning through kind of your own personal hardship, you started to develop those kind of brands and, diversified yourself. Was there a different Kristy like 10, 15 years ago where you kind of going down the classic track of some sort of profession and then you figured out that was not for you?
There was a different version of Kristy 6 months ago, and even a year ago. I constantly feel like we're meant to grow and evolve, and different things happen to us for reasons. And when did Kristy's journey start? I mean, Kristy's journey started when she was like 4 or 5, back when I remember. I've always been a go-getter. I'm innately wired to go. I have 2 entrepreneur parents that go as well. And I think that I've been wired from a very young age to kind of go and live in a fight or flight mode. I got married super young, had kids, started some companies, got divorced, realized that actually wasn't alignment for me. And in that, I've also had seasons of different companies. So I started my first business when I was I was really young. My first actual official LLC was at 13. And so I've always known that entrepreneurship was for me, but I've had to learn myself and my personality and figuring out what aspects of entrepreneurship for me and how to step out. And I'm still learning how to step out of, being an operator and making sure I'm the owner, to have that freedom that kind of fits in with my personality. And I think that's something that we are all on different journeys and we all have to learn. I'm never one to say, this is what I did, this is how you should do, or this is what this person did. Like, we're all different. We all have different lifestyles. We have different priorities. We have different family needs. We have different health needs. And you really have to figure that out for yourself. So I'm very grateful for all my hard that has allowed me to be here, to make the decisions that I'm making today for myself and my family and my businesses. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very interesting. And based on the conversation we had on your podcast a few weeks ago, I know that you also went through kind of a burnout at the beginning of this year, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You took some time off. Tell us a little bit more about, you're a go-getter, like you started your companies at the age of 13. You're obviously a very creative person. There's lots of things going on up here all the time, I'm sure.
All the time. Like sometimes you're like,
yeah.
For sure. And
where's the off switch?
There's not an off switch. Or you have to figure out, like for me to really be off, I have to travel. A lot of times that taking myself completely out of the environment and immersing myself in something new is an off switch for me. So I can go down to the Florida Keys and I feel like I'm a different person. My cadence is different. It's different. So I know for me, I need those scheduled trips in place so that I can actually truly be off. And also it's been rebuilding routines. So going back to your question about burnout, 100%, we're not designed to live in fight or flight. And I was at a point earlier this year where I was like, something's got to give. Like my life has changed drastically as far as my needs and single mom and just all the different things. And I was feeling financial stress. I was feeling emotional stress, and just, it started weighing on me. Like I no longer wanted, like people were looking to me and asking for questions. And I'm like, you got the wrong girl. Like I'm asking my own questions, like trying to get help somewhere else. And I think ultimately that's what we have to realize is I really feel like we all have that. We all have that journey
100%.
And we all are just not honest and vulnerable about it. But I think that honesty and that vulnerability and really start mapping out my life I literally got a notebook and I was like writing down the companies. Like I'm very driven on purpose. I want it to mean something. So I started like, what is my purpose here? And the thing about it is this is something I couldn't have said, 6 months or even, a year ago. The dreams that I wrote down that I thought would kind of shift. It's like some of the big decisions that was made that I really stressed over making. Like, don't act like it was just like a quick thing. I stressed over making. Now I am so excited about new dreams and freedom that has been found and making those decisions and that hard. And actually I took about 3 months off. And for me, that's
huge. Probably huge. I know.
Huge,
3 months as an entrepreneur as well. And with kids and like single mom, all these things, I'm sure that was a lot of pressure and a huge decision.
And it for sure was. And I didn't do any house renovations. I did a couple. I say I didn't do any. I did a couple. But I didn't do any launches. I didn't record any podcasts. Of course I had to handle a couple business things like in that 3 month period, but my normal cadence of going and launching and photo shoots and Excel spreadsheets. And I literally took a seat back. And my kids are out of school. I really wanted to pour that time into them. And I realized when the kids went back to school and a bunch of decisions were made in taking those steps back. And I think fully me taking those steps back allowed those decisions to be made. I think in all of that, when routines started following again, kids went back to school, I was ready to go. Like I was no longer in burnout mode. I was like inspired and had new ideas and new things. And I think that we think that we're invincible. We think that we have no, I've said this before, and I say it often, is like we're phones, and our phones, when it gets tired, what does it do? Powers down, it turns off. Like there's nothing left. And I think ultimately us, like whether it's emotional stress or physical stress or whatever it is, for me, I'm not built to turn off. Like I'm built to like, and I think it's got its pros and its cons, right? Because I think that a lot of that survival innate ability has allowed me to overcome obstacles in business, has allowed me to be where I am today, has allowed like opportunities and things to happen. It's that risk versus reward, but it also can, if you're not careful, it can be at self-destruct. It could be at your health's expense, and your health, like, people say that it's expensive to be healthy, and it's actually really way more expensive to be sick. So, self-care is a priority, and I think we all have to learn what that looks like. So I have enjoyed getting a new routine and getting a new cadence. And I've changed up in this last year. Like I moved out of suburbia into like more, I guess you would call it the country. I live on a lake now. I'm calm around water. I've changed my environment. I don't work out where I used to work out with. I picked a new gym and a new routine. I don't wake up and work at 5 a.m. anymore. I wake up when either my kids need to go to school or I'm well rested. Like, so I've just really put myself at the center point. And I think we all need to realize when that is at the key, when that is like the focus, it's when everything else works a little bit better, more productive, relationships are better, you communicate better, you're a better leader, just all those different things. But I've learned that the hard way. I've not always been the best leader, the best partner, all those different things. And I've suffered as far as my health, just thinking I can do it. I can add this one more thing. I can handle it. I'm not going to ask for help. Like I'll figure it out. Like, instead of shooting an email off, I'll just stay up and get it recoded and fix it. And so, so that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah. Was it the first time that you went through a burnout, or in that kind of a capacity?
That kind of capacity for sure. Yes.
Yeah.
I've experienced burnout in other areas. So in my early 20s, for about 7 years, I was a wedding photographer. And towards the end of my wedding photography career, so a lot of the stuff that you're seeing creative, I was able to translate to my online e-commerce brands. So a lot of people are like, gosh, this was successful really quick. I'm like, oh no, it's been 10 years of owning multiple different companies and those learning skills and learning this and learning that. But towards the end of like my photography career, I loved photography. It was something that I chose. It was a creative outlet for me. I was feeling burnout. I was actually feeling like I didn't want to give up my Saturdays anymore. It wasn't worth it. My kids started playing sports. So I started experiencing burnout. And that's actually when I started making a choice to start another venture, which was the STARTplanner. And so that was a choice. But I'm going to say this also. Probably when I experienced the worst burnout was when I feel like choices were being made that were not in my control. So I was fighting them, right? So things were going wrong, and COVID's hitting, and one of your companies is suffering, and you're trying to fix. You're in like survival mode, and then this is not going right, so you're trying to fix, and you're just trying to fix all these different things, and you kind of forget about your self-care. You're then burn out, like wanting to like take a break, but as an entrepreneur, you really don't feel like you can take a break. So yeah. And so I know that now in the position that I am, where I want to be leveraged and what is healthy for me. And so that's why I'm very careful. And I actually sold a business 2 months ago, and I've been very careful in the decision that I make and how I reinvest those funds, to make sure I'm not setting myself up for another burnout. And instead it's something that's creative and I can just do it on my own schedule. So I want to conquer the world yesterday. That's my personality. And that's not always realistic. And I think it could be the opposite for other people. And so just really understanding yourself, like for some people, they want to do things, but they feel like they lack on like the get up and the go, or the motivation, or I want to do this, I'm just fearful, or whatever may be like holding you back. And I think for a long time, I operated out of fear. And I think ultimately that's where a lot of the burnout came. So I just want to be intentional and purpose driven. And I don't want to say I never can go back to those other places, but I hope the older, wiser version of Kristy will make smarter decisions so that I don't. And I'm honestly sharing this so that if you're listening to this and you're experiencing
we can hold
burnout,
you accountable.
yes, you'll hold me accountable, number one. But if you're listening to this and you're like, gosh, I'm burnout, or I want to start this, or I want to, it's all hard. And we all are here, I think, with a purpose and a reason. And figuring that out is we all have limited time. So figuring that out and figuring out yourself and making the decisions that are right for you is important.
Yeah. And I love that you were saying that you felt like you went into the burnout stage when decisions were not in your control. I think that's a really powerful realization. I often ask people when they speak openly about their burnout, what were the signs or the signals that made you realize, oh my God, like I need to take 3 months off. Like I cannot go on like this.
Sure. From a personal health perspective, my hormones are all out of whack. I was losing hair, like legit. I'm like, am I just getting older? Like, or is this stress? For sure, stress was a factor. From a business perspective, I mean, people would call on me to make decisions, and normally I could make a decision, and I feel like I had an inability to make a decision. Probably actually everywhere in my life. Like I was lacking clarity. I was lacking like sureness. And like someone would call me to like a question, I would be frustrated. Like I'd be frustrated, not at them, at myself. And I just ultimately saw that I wasn't feeling well. And as an entrepreneur that loves entrepreneurship, and I'm so grateful for it, I literally was like, if someone will just take all of these and take all the weight, and I can just show up to a job and get a paycheck and go home, that sounds amazing. Like I want to be an unknown, and I just want to like go get a paycheck and come home. I mean, that's where my mindset was. And that's not me.
And that was not you.
That was not me. And so I have done counseling for over 4 years. I'm very proud to say that. I think that everyone needs that. I knew at that point, like something had to give. I didn't know what it was. I just knew that there needed to be a change, and some big changes happened in my world, not only with my schedule, but with being able to sell a company, and that gave me some freedom that I ultimately desired. That I could get back to my creative self, because I think ultimately when we're in that state of flow, when we're in that state of creativity, that's where I think I thrive in, because I'm ultimately meant to build, and I love entrepreneurship. I just knew that the Kristy that I am, I didn't realize actually until I started like feeling her back, like she was coming back, that I'm like, dang, I was in burnout mode, when you start getting glimpse of, oh, this is myself. I feel like myself again, when that cloud starts to lift. So, yeah.
I love that you're saying that. I think when people ask me about my burnout and what symptoms I had, I actually said exactly that. I just said, I just didn't feel like myself anymore. I was on the edge all the time and super angry with everyone and took everything super personally. Like an email would come in and I would just get, flutters in my heart and feel like super frustrated and angry or personally attacked. Like it was just not me anymore. And so it's actually the first time I hear someone say kind of something similar. So that's really cool that you say that.
Yep. I mean, and it's funny that you say that. I don't know if you've ever heard of reflexology. Have you ever heard of that? Okay. So I would go into reflexology sessions, and she would be like, "You're so angry." And I would be like, I'm not angry. Why? Why are you saying I'm angry? It's like I almost had like an angry response to her saying I'm angry. And she's like, your feet is yellow. And so like a tint to your feet being yellow is a sign that you're like harvesting emotional anger. And I'm like, I'm not angry. And it's like, actually I was. And I think it was at myself, it was a sign of burnout. I was in that fight or flight mode. And I was not letting go of some things that I just needed to let go of.
And did you decide right then and there that you're going to take 3 months right from the start? Or was it more like, I need some time, and you just kind of started that process, and then at the end, it ended up to be 3 months?
I did not know it was going to be 3 months. I knew that as my kids were exiting, I cleared my schedule for podcast. I told my team, I wouldn't be coming in. I, knew I had vacations. I knew I wasn't going to do any launches. I wasn't going to do any shoots. Like I knew it was about a 60-day period that I knew I was kind of letting myself have some grace. And it ended up being just under 3 months, which is when the kids really got back to school and cadences started picking up. And as I did a shoot yesterday, a lunch today, all the different things, but I was so excited to do them and ready to do them. Mm-hmm. Beginning of the summer, I would have been like, why do I have to do this? And, so ultimately I think that there was a purpose and intent for everything. And I don't know if I can say this, but I'm a believer in God, whether you're God or the universe or whatever, but I totally think that God had a reason and a timing for everything that kind of happened for me. And even some stuff that's down the pipeline that's coming that I cannot wait to share about. Like, I know that it happened. And if all that timing and those steps back and decisions weren't made, it wouldn't have happened. So I'm grateful for it all.
That's wonderful. And so I think when people listen now and they feel like, oh, maybe I should take some time off, but then I don't know what I would do with the time, or I feel really guilty about taking a step away, no matter if it is my own business or a team, right? No matter if you're just an individual contributor in a team or like a manager leading a team. I'm sure that I don't know, I'm curious, like, have you had like feelings of guilt, and how did you overcome that? And how did you, what did you decide to do? What did you do in those times?
I mean, I think that, I think this is more women driven than men. I think we feel guilty for everything. As a single mom, I feel guilty when I'm enjoying myself and my kids are at their dad's. I feel guilty. Even though I should just be in like having some me time so that I'm better when they come back. I feel guilty if I'm in there shipping, like it's a big launch day and I've got the team going. I feel like I should be like in the middle of it, right? Helping them, cheering them, leading them. But ultimately I've realized that's not like boundaries are what I need. And ultimately me taking steps back and allowing people to take steps up is giving them the ability to thrive. Mm-hmm. And boundaries is the biggest thing that I feel like has helped. But it didn't take the guilt completely away. So I'm still learning with that for sure. I felt guilty. I mean, even for myself, I kind of took time off this summer with working out. And so I didn't even feel my best, fit or in shape or whatever. So I was kind of hard on myself mentally, and it's just, we need to give ourselves some grace. And if it's just a season and you need a change, you just need to let it go and give yourself time to rest and recharge. And if you don't get that, like if you don't feel a time to go or back, like get help, ask for help. And it's not just a season, then maybe you need a permanent change in your life. Yeah. So for me, it was just a season of burnout. And I'm still actually piecing myself back together as far as from a health perspective. Because I pushed myself at limits probably that I shouldn't have been pushing at.
Yeah. And I love that as well, that you're calling it a season, because I think that once we are in burnout, we think I will never get over this, or what if I'm always in this, but I think it's so powerful to take time for yourself. And once you do that, you can actually get pretty quickly back into like a more empowered self if you take the grace time to actually invest in yourself. And I love how you're saying you have so many ideas and so many new things that came out of that. And I think going through these cycles as well shows us, hey, like there's always the other side as well. Like, yes, we have a low and we're going through these waves of emotions, but then it goes up again as well. It's just kind of the natural cycle of life. And I have to say that, I'm working with both men and women, and I do also speak to a lot of men that feel guilty about taking time off and, leaving teams or anything like that. I just talked to a leader at Facebook. I know a leader at Google, like, it's the same thing. Like I think we often think as women, oh, it's just us. But I think, for me, it's actually opened up this other side of working with, working with the male population, that they also experience these things, and they
just maybe don't talk about it as much.
Too. Exactly.
Yeah. And see, I actually think I'm kind of more maybe wired like a man in essence.
I say that often about myself too.
And I mean, I'm being serious. And the thing about it is my hormones have been off. And the thing is, my testosterone's been high. That's what it is. And
So interesting.
my doctor is like, I think it's emotionally driven. Like she has said it to me and said it to me and said it to me. And, you know, wearing that like man roles and just in the company and feeling the need to like control and like I'm actually yearning for a season of like being able to take steps back and be in more of a feminine energy. And I think that's ultimately too what I'm trying to like tap into a little bit more is not being so have to protect and have to like, but ultimately I think that kind of, it's just the path that it kind of led myself down, making sure my kids were okay and making sure everybody else was okay. And that provide and, gather and hunt and feed, like kind of mentality that men were set up to be. So it's been an interesting thing because I think I have a lot of male characteristics where sometimes I just need to like chill out, like trust, let go, like step back, be the feminine energy. So I'm still learning.
I totally relate to that too. Yeah, for sure. So were there one or two things that you could share with the listeners that you feel like that helped you as tools to get through this period?
Well, it would be crazy if I didn't mention my STARTplanner. So it actually got evolved going through these different seasons with different experts and different things. So I used to wake up and go. Now I wake up and there's gratitude, there's prayer or thoughts, messaging. There's every single day it's got prompts so that you are looking at your wellness, you're looking at your self-care, you're looking at your growth. For me, one thing that did not change through any of it was planning. So whether I was taking time off or not, I was still planning, I was still visioning out, I was still, it's not like I was just completely off. Like my brain just didn't completely shut off. And then the second thing I would be is, if you're feeling that burnout, I would ask you to get 3 people that you can kind of communicate to that know you well, that you actually look at them and want to be where they're at. We all have social of influence, I call it like the circle of influence. We all have social influence. And making sure you're picking who you're asking advice for is kind of key. And so I had a couple people that I would lean on from an emotional perspective or financial perspective or business perspective that I was asking for advice for. And a lot of times they probably felt like I was questioning them, but I really was questioning myself and wanting to question them because I trusted them. So my advice would be to find a couple people that you trust that can help you through those different seasons and help you through those different changes to help you come out on the other side. Not being like, dang, I shouldn't have made that decision, or I made the wrong decision, or I shouldn't have gave up, and it was just a season. There's so many different what ifs and every situation is going to be different. I just really feel like, and even the extreme version is, it can drive you to mental health, like in your mental, like health not being well, and it drive you to a depressive state. And, it could get way worse. So just making sure that you're openly communicating about your struggles with people, giving yourself grace, so that, like I said, you come out on the other side, a stronger, more aware person, so that you're making the best decisions for yourself and your team and your family and your loved ones and all of it.
Everything. Yeah. Did you have a book that you read during that time that really was eye-opening for you?
That I wrote, or that I listened to?
That you listened to or read that kind of helped you through this process?
I listened, and I actually read a lot of books, but probably the one that stands out the most was Joe Dispenza, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And I'm assuming from your face, you know which one that is.
I love that book. I think I mentioned it probably at least once in every podcast.
There you go.
So I'm very happy you're mentioning it.
Yes. Yeah. So just a very profound, thing about the same very thing, a cadence and a routine that I had kind of built in myself. I had to rebuild. And I'm still rebuilding. I don't want to sit here and say I've got it all figured out. Still rebuilding. I think we all are works in progress. So
yeah, for sure.
So yeah.
Great. Awesome. Kristy, this was such an interesting insight. Actually, one more question. What is your book about that you wrote?
So my book was in 2017. The irony is it was called Start Balancing. It is called Start Balancing. And the irony of it is I'm actually under contract for book 2, and I just don't feel like it's right yet. There will be a book 2. But the irony of it is I wrote that, and I wrote it not saying I was in a place from balance. I was actually struggling. And I took a lot of heat actually when I went through some big changes in my life. And I'm like, actually, these big changes are getting me back balanced. So if it's in my future and God willing that I write another book one day, great. If not, that's okay. But the book was Start Balancing, and I'm very grateful for it. It's got a lot of productivity hacks and life lessons. And it was very authentic that I just didn't have it all figured out. And then I really didn't have it all figured out. So I think there will be another book one day, but it's just got to be the right time.
Beautiful. Yeah. Great. Well, it was such a pleasure to listen to you and to hear your wisdom around what you learned in this process. So thank you so much for sharing so openly. If people would like to learn more about you or listen to your podcast, where can they find you?
So you can find me at Start with Kristy. That's my website, Start with Kristy. It's Kristy. That's my Facebook. That's my Instagram. Start Brands is the Start Brands company, and it's just startbrands.com. And that's got the STARTplanner, the Start Knowing Your Numbers, and the Start Balancing book. And the podcast is on startplanner.com. So it's just linked. It's just the Start with Kristy podcast. So if you search on any of the major Spotify, Google, Apple, all those different things, it's on there.
Awesome. Great. Well, again, thank you so much for your time today, and I wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you so much for having me. Good luck, everyone. Keep at it.